Photographers. We've all been there. We've booked the package holiday. We've looked at all the sites that we're going to be seeing while we're there. And we have to approach the kind of photography of all that as tourists. And it's exceptionally difficult to get into these places and do the things that photographers really want to do. Climb walls, get inside buildings, be alone, not have non-player characters walking around the place. So as I've begun to travel more the last couple of years, I've found little sneaky ways and little kind of approaches that help me get pictures that are a lot more than postcards. So if you're like me, you like to travel, you like to take pictures, but you don't want to pay massive prices to get private entry to places, you don't want to get arrested for going in places you shouldn't be going in, have a listen to this podcast and let me know what you think. I mean, it kind of works for me. You want to know what I do? Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to another and the final episode of the Burkitt Encounter for 2025. How did we get here? How did we get to 2025? But how the hell did another year just pass us by? I mean, it's been quite insane, hasn't it, this year? I mean, my grandparents used to say to me when I was younger, oh, enjoy your time, because as you get older, time speeds up. And I think, yeah, grandparents. But they were absolutely bloody right. They were absolutely spot on. I mean, it's just insane how quickly time kind of just leaves you. And it leaves you to the point, it's just insane how time leaves you. And it leaves you to a point where you think, oh, 1 minute I'm 16, next minute I'm hurtling towards 60. So this year's been no different. And this year's been a little kind of bit of hit and miss for me because, I've had a lot of adventures. Myself and Kirsty have got away quite a lot this year, but conversely, I've been quite ill this year. So from kind of like the middle of July till now, really, I've been suffering, as some of you know, with my back issues, and I'm only now getting pain relief that allows me to kind of enjoy life again. I had 3 or 4 months there, which were pretty fucking miserable. Hence why in the last couple of months, there's only been a couple of podcasts because I just haven't been fit and able to do them. And this year, my plan was, particularly after, when we went to Greece in April, Easter. My plan was to put a podcast out every week, and I'd kind of started to do that. I was working full time, I was doing photography, semi full time. I was doing lots of work, I had lots to talk about, and it was going great until the summer when the bike dropped off a cliff and the meds stopped working, and I found myself in an absolute, miserable vibe, and I wasn't creating, I wasn't leaving the house very much, to be honest. So I had got into a place where this year the podcast had really taken off. I'd upped the production values a little bit, spending a bit more time kind of putting it all together, not just blabbing. And sadly, as I started to build some momentum, the thing fell down because of my physical illness. So this year didn't quite pan out from a podcast perspective sense as what I imagine it would do. So I'm a little bit sad about that, but I've always ever wanted to create kind of like quality content here and tell you about true stories. I don't those of you that follow the podcast, those 2 or 3 that come back regular, I don't read what everybody else is doing and do the same thing. I don't talk about what everybody else is doing. I kind of pretty much, the podcast is based around my personal experiences. And when you stop having those experiences, it's difficult to come and talk for an hour about things that I don't know much about because I'm not involved. So the podcast from the start, initially it was me passing on my tech knowledge and my experience, and it's kind of evolved that way. So I never wanted a podcast where I was just going, oh, have I seen that new Sony camera? Or bloody hell, pals, I've seen it stay to him. You know what I mean? Never wanted to do that. I always wanted it to be from my opinion, my real life experience. So when I couldn't really leave the house from end of August till pretty recently, apart from a couple of weeks where I kind of thought I'd cracked it, but I'd not had a lot to bring to you, to the party. And so, but on doctor's orders, I got a little bit of respite a few weeks ago, and myself and Kirsty did travel just to try and build my core strength up and get out a little bit and try and get back to some kind of normality with a view to getting back to normal after Christmas, which is the plan. But that allowed us to do a little bit of travelling, and it allowed me to walk. We were doing 25,000, sometimes 30,000 steps a day. Considering before I got the med review and got some meds that worked, I couldn't do 100 steps. So as part of my rehab, building that kind of strength back up, it was good to do that, but it's also good to see some new places, because I've pretty much been stuck in the house, back garden, or 100 yards to the park. That was the most I'd done in a few months. So so I'm glad that I've got some new material to talk through on the show. I've had some new experiences I could talk about, and I'm kind of getting back to some kind of normality. So my plan is, touch wood, in the new year, to at least do a podcast on something photography related every fortnight. So 52 weeks in a year, 26 podcasts next year, plus little bits in between, some rants, some other bits. I did start writing on the blog again. I started blogging, did 2 or 3 blogs, but then just didn't have the mental capacity to do those either. So I will start all that again. So I'm hopeful, alongside my full-time commitments, to be doing pretty much a podcast and some other bits and bobs every couple of weeks. That's the plan. We'll see how it goes. But for today, I just wanted to talk you through my experience of, it's a frustration really, my experience of wanting to photograph fabulous places, but not wanting to do them while there's god-awful non-player character tourists in the goddamn way. And I spoke a little bit about this in previous podcasts. I think when I did the Greece trip, I talked about how people just get on my nerves because they're in the way. So over the last couple of years, I've gone to New York, Greece, Rome, Krakow, Chicago, Iceland, Ireland, Malta. I've kind of figured out ways and approaches to enable me to get the picture that I wanted, sometimes with a compromise, but to allow myself to come back with something more than just postcards or tourist pictures. Now, within that, you have to think about what you want to do with those pictures. Are you doing them to try and sell them through a stock website like Alamy or any other thieves? Or are you doing them to hawk around galleries and shops, people that produce postcards? Why are you doing the pictures for? What is the point? And as you remember, I said to you guys way back in another podcast, you'll only make your best pictures if you make them for yourself first and try and please yourself first. And part of that for me is not going on a trip with any kind of like preconceived ideas of the type of picture I want to get. It's more about going with the flow and taking a step back when you're there and allowing yourself to breathe in the situation you're in without falling into the tourist trap. And it is very difficult because you do 9 times out of 10 find yourself, particularly if you've booked a day excursion, for example, you find yourself walking around following the mother goose, don't you, the mother hen. Everybody's kind of like waddling on behind and you're seeing what you see. And it's difficult if you're trying to listen to what the guide's saying, take in everything they're saying and spot the photograph at the same time. So what I kind of... it's a little bit different. I think for me it was different when I went to Ireland because I know Ireland inside out. I lived there in the 90s, so I have an affinity with Ireland. I know when and where, what I'm doing, what I'm looking for. But going to places like Malta, I've never been, Greece, I've never been, Rome, I've never been, New York, I've never been, all those other places I've never been. Even though you're doing a bit of scouting before you go there, you know, you're looking for things that the big ones, the places everybody goes to, and the little nooks and crannies in between. It's difficult to imagine until you see it, you're on the ground, what you're going to be able to photograph, how it's going to appear. And I think when I first started doing, I'll call it travel photography, because my travel photography prior to 18 months ago was literally me and Kirsty going to Liverpool and me photographing the city to death. And what I discovered there was I like to style of street photography and I like to style of architecture photography, which really suited me and allowed me to kind of not come back with postcards. And so that couple of years in 6 or 7 or 8, 10 years of going to Liverpool as a tourist but taking pictures, allowed me, when we went to New York, was our first big trip, to shoot street architecture, landscapes, skyscapes in a different vein than if I'd never done it before. So I guess I was a little in front of the crowd, I had a little edge on most people. But that said, it is entirely a different world when you're in a new country and you're thinking about things like culture, attitudes, laws, and trying to abide by all those things while getting interesting pictures. And I mean, we did actually, some of you that follow the podcast or have read my website will know that I still have it, but not as bad. I had a horrendous fear of flying. So my holidays over the last 52 years, apart from one flight that I did from Manchester to Derry in Northern Ireland in the early 90s, apart from that one flight, I haven't flown. So I was 52 before I flew properly. And my holidays, vacations, travels prior to that had all been either motorcycle, car, coach, minibus, car, ferry, train. And I've been to the south of France and a few other places, but been there by other means than flying. So when Kirsty said to me she'd like to travel more, she didn't want to go on her own, obviously, but she knew I didn't want to fly. The idea of her being alone just made me exceptionally sad. So I had a choice whether I could either allow my poor wife to have to go on travels with people she didn't want to go with or go on her own, or I'd have to suck it up, man up, and get on a fucking plane. So I did that in the summer of 2023. And we had a short flight from Manchester to Amsterdam. And although I did take my camera, it rained quite a lot that weekend, and I didn't feel like I'd gone to take pictures as a tourist or as anything. I just went to get over the fear of flying. So I didn't really photograph Amsterdam. I took a few pictures, but there was nothing in there that I thought, oh, that's worthy of talking about. It was 6 months later when we went to New York, when I decided, bought the new camera, bought the R6, new lens, some kit, an holster. Got all to really have a good go at it, and to make sure that while me and Kirsty were there having a good time seeing New York, finding new stuff out, I could photograph it the best I could. So I think we'll start by looking at some of my New York work, and it's a little funny because whenever I go anywhere now, I always research what are the laws, what's the copyright laws, what's the laws for street photography, what is all that kind of stuff. So I'm not burned while I'm there, and I'm not thinking, am I going to get beat up? Am I going to get arrested? Am I going to be called names? I don't want to piss anybody off. I want to get the shot. I don't want to piss anybody off. So I did that for New York, and everything seemed pretty cushy. Although in America, the copyright laws are a little different to in the UK. But sometimes you just have to, what's the phrase? Take a chance. So I wasn't going to photograph anything commercially. I didn't have to contact the people, the city that owns any of the buildings, and say, can I have a license or can I pay a fee to photograph this building so I'm trying to sell it? I was going as a tourist, so all my pictures are done in that kind of way. But more for that, I was doing it for myself, so I got a record of the trip, so I could hone my craft, so I could look back and go, I fucking got that street shot. I actually quite like that. I really do enjoy doing that, and I'm glad I did it that way. So all my years I've been to Liverpool photographing people in the street and buildings in Liverpool, which is a very, very similar city to New York, only it's more compressed, it's smaller, but it's aesthetically very similar to New York. And the people are very similar in terms of their approach, their friendliness, their welcome. So it was nice. So I didn't feel like I was walking around a foreign city, if you like. It felt a little bit like Liverpool, only bigger. In fact, Kirsty and I have commented many times over the years that we feel more at home in Liverpool than we do in our hometowns of Rotherham and Sheffield, where I wouldn't feel as safe or as welcome. So we get to New York, we're travelling, I'm ready for the street photography. No real idea what we're going to look at. We've got lots of excursions we've got lots of trips booked, so we're going to go Yankee Stadium, World Trade Center, Statue of Liberty, all those other things in between, go and see the Intrepid, all that kind of stuff. And in between, we were doing a combination of walking 30,000 steps a day, which meant I could do a lot of street photography. We went on the subway a lot, which meant I could get a lot of that kind of stuff, which was difficult with the low light and the movement and the grit. And also, it was April. We didn't know what the weather was going to do, but it was kind of like grey or blue most days, so the light outside was decent. And I came away with some interesting shots, I think. It was tiring, it was hard work, but approaching a new city with a little bit of armour in terms of experience of another city allowed me, I think, to take pictures that I wouldn't have taken had I been going to photograph a city for the first time. I'm starting a little bit down the pack here because while I was there taking pictures, the camera reset itself back to 1, so the pictures aren't quite in order. Unless and I've renamed them because I can't remember why I did that a bit. So I'll read you them, shows them by date, so we can see roughly the order we took them in. So we got there, and the first night we were jet lagged, and we went out into Times Square, and we hated it. We were both like, "What the fuck have we done? Why the hell have we booked to stay in Times Square?" Because we were jet lagged, we were tired. It was getting dark, and there were people just coming at you. Anybody that's been to Times Square knows it. So I abandoned that. I did take a few pictures that night, and you can see this is me half asleep, looking for interesting New Yorker-looking things, people, places, food carts. I mean, you see all that on TV and on films, don't you? But until you see it, it's actually not quite what you think it's going to be. But just completely interesting. I mean, you wouldn't walk down a street in Rotherham and get the same shot. You see ice cream vans and food trucks, but something about the street vendors in New York that's a little bit more bang in your face, isn't it? It's a bit more, come on, buy a hot dog. And I kind of like that. So the first, just probably for an hour at night, walking around Times Square and that kind of area, just looking and seeing what was like, while at the same time thinking, I'm absolutely bollocksed. Kirsty's in the right mood. I can tell. Just get what you can get. Don't worry too much about it tonight. But these are a few that I took, as we arrived. And it's interesting because normally when I'm taking pictures, I'm quite on it. Even though we're on holiday and we're relaxing, I'm quite switched on. I'm looking, all the time. Talked about this in previous podcasts. But when you're tired, you're not quite sure if you're seeing the same thing. So it's only after we got back and I reflected on some of the earlier shots that I realised, actually, I did capture one or two decent pictures, even though at the time I was thinking, this is shit. Oh my God, I've got a new camera, I've got a new kit, I've got a week. What am I doing? Shall I just leave the camera in the hotel and enjoy the old? That's how I was feeling that night. I'm glad I didn't, actually. But again, you kind of, you suck it up and you struggle on, and you try to get through that kind of like process of feeling, what's the phrase? What would the phrase be? Feeling spaced out? Is that the right phrase? Spaced out? I don't know if that's the right phrase, spaced out, or just not quite with it. Not quite on the money, and thinking, I'm going to take some pictures because we've spent a lot of money to come here and I don't want to miss this opportunity. And what we did notice in Times Square, it was just full of tourists. Oh, there's a schoolboy, look. And full of people just like us trying to make sense of what the hell we dropped ourselves into. So mooching around first night, we did it for an hour. So we went and tried to grab a bite to eat in one burger place. I'm vegetarian, I don't eat meat, and at that point Kirsty was a meat eater, but she's lactose, gluten free, so we were struggling to find something to eat, and I think in the end we just ended up getting a pizza or something simple and hit the sack. We just hit the sack. We just went, do you know what, this is not going to happen today. Let's just go and get up and see what happens tomorrow. So the very next morning, we were up and out for, I'm going to say 7 o'clock. I can't tell you the exact time because a schoolboy error I made on this trip was I forgot to set my new camera up to the correct time and date. So the dates are a bit out and the time's matter. So we up, you're fresh, we're going, right, what's the first port of call? Well, this evening we've booked Yankee Stadium to see a Yankees game. So today we're going to kind of mooch up that way and find our way up that end of the city. Great. Where's first then? Central Park, brilliant. Stayed in Manhattan, the Manhattan Hotel on Times Square. It's about a 10-minute walk to Central Park. Great. So we step outside. It's a nice clear day. There's nobody about really. It's quite early. You know, it's quite peaceful. Complete contrast to the night before. And now, because I've had a good rest, I'm fresh and I'm good to go. I'm good to attack. Whilst walking hand in hand with Kirsty, breathing the city in, looking at new stuff. Oh, look, Sound City. Oh my God, we're in New York. Can you believe it? Beautiful experience. So you can see the first thing I see is the steam coming out of the floor, which just always intrigued me. You see it on film, and you think, wonder if that's like an effect. Wonder if does that really happen? So you see it, and I saw this a few times as we were going around the city, and it's quite nice to actually see it. And I always love the black and whites of cities because they hide a lot of things from you, so you have to look for them a little harder. But again, street food, it's in your face. It's not hidden behind a little tent. It's just, bam, come and buy some food. We didn't, actually. I think we might have bought a bottle of Coke from there one. But just that kind of atmosphere of steam rising, I guess, from the subway, unless somebody can tell me different. It's something you never see in the UK. You wouldn't walk down a city street in the UK and see steam rising out of or smoke rising out of the floor. So I just had to photograph it while I was there. And then, of course, you're scanning around, you're walking up 8th Avenue, was it? 7th Avenue, and you're just seeing stuff. And the buildings go on and on and on and on forever. And because of my experience in Liverpool, my years of looking up and not really photographing at ground level, but the second floor was where the most interesting stuff, particularly in a city like Liverpool, where things started to flow and came high. I know New York's not quite the same, but similar. If you're looking at ground floor, it's all shops, glass windows and that. You start looking up, interesting. So I'm starting to look up and I'm photographing up and I'm doing angles and I'm shooting them quite contrasty because I do. And just finding my way around the city and just seeing, street signs and the walk, don't walk, and the colours of their streets and their signs compared to ours. And we're all very Western. Everything looks like it's in the West. It's just different. It's just slightly different. And again, this shot in front of you now could be Liverpool. This could be a looking up shot in Liverpool. It's not, it's New York, but the kind of architecture, that 1920s, 30s onwards kind of skyscraper architecture, which Liverpool is full of, hence why they make a lot of the American movies set in New York and places like that, is Liverpool. But I just love how the light's coming through the clouds, hitting the buildings. You're getting scatters of light all around the buildings. Great reflections off the windows. Just love it. And this is like 7:30 in the morning. I'm just absolutely going, fucking hell. Such a contrast to last night. But again, it's all because of my experience as a tourist in Liverpool and figuring out that although we're heading to a tourist attraction, Central Park, I know from some experience not to approach it like a tourist. Like, for example, you get to Central Park and we entered via the south entrance, would it be? And you're kind of like straight into a lovely park with parky stuff in there. And there's people standing in the touristy pictures, and I just think, just need to not go there. There's like a little fountain down some steps, which is lovely. But everybody's gathered around it, just doing the same shot. And it was a little bit that, the same as the Trevi Fountain in Rome. You can't really get a creative shot of that because it's just a million tourists around it all the time. So you have to come up with another concept. So what we'd done before we got to Central Park, this is just across the entrance from Central Park. That tall building there, the name escapes me, I'll put it on screen, but that was recently finished and it's one of the tallest buildings in New York, clearly. But just looking at it like this rather than like straight at it like which all the tourists are doing, which is what Kirsty was doing. Because I'm always looking up, because I know that's where the interesting stuff is. At least I know I'm not getting a postcard of that building. I'm getting my style of architecture shot with some Central Park in the foreground to give it a bit of context, without having to feel like people are in my way. Because you can just never get the shot if you do it at eye level or at street level. You always get other tourists in there, whether it's your wife or whether it's other people. So just my experience of Liverpool allowed me in New York on this first day to just look elsewhere. And it's not just about looking up, it's about looking beyond the obvious. And one of the things we did, I mean, we weren't sure if this was the bridge from, what's it called? Home Alone. We did photograph it, but I can't remember if it's this one or not. But what we did was we worked our way around Central Park instead of through it, because we researched before. We're massive fans of Ghostbusters, both me and Kirsty. One of our favourite films. So we went to see some of the Ghostbusters locations. And also been a massive Beatles, John Lennon fan. I wanted to see the Dakota building. So we deviated left and went there first. Spook Central. And again, if you photograph this flat like a tourist, all you get is the bottom floor. Which is interesting because it's still got the interesting gate on there. But outside of that, it's just a building. So we did it that way. We went to... nearly knocked everything off. We went to look at it, and I, again, photographed it from a different perspective because I didn't want to do the tourist thing. That's how I like to get to most buildings. Now, you can't always do that. For example, at the Parthenon, I couldn't get that close because of the building works and the ropes, and I wasn't going to pay for a fee to get in there after dark. I wasn't that interested, but I'm tight. But looking up and getting as close to the grit, to the bricks as you can, is a great way of getting pictures that are interesting, not just a tourist shot, a postcard. Example there, it's a square-on shot of the front entrance where Pete Venkman comes in and out and where the dog runs out and all that stuff, but it's got the same thing above the doors as it had. But it's a postcard shot, isn't it, really? It's the shot any tourist would do. So I didn't do it. And again, with the Dakota building, trying to make it look a little bit of something different. I mean, John Lennon shot there. I was slightly surprised that there's nothing that indicates that. If you didn't know he was shot in the courtyard there, you wouldn't know. But again, just my looking up rather than this is where John Lennon was shot. Sad but true. Trying to get a different angle, again, postcard shot, on a building that's like, for 45 years, that's been in my mind, the Dakota building. So to go and see it, photograph it, imagine what it must have been like with Lennon lived there, is quite interesting for me as a fan of John Lennon. But because even at 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, there's other people standing around with a picture taken, standing outside the building. The only real way you can get a creative shot of it is to do something like get up to it and look up. And sometimes you can't get as close as you like. Other times like then you can. So I guess if you can get in and utilise that space, do it, because you'll get a unique picture and something a bit more interesting than just a tourist shot. And what I've noticed I do is if there's an instance where I want a tourist shot, I'll get my phone out and just take it on the phone. Because I'm not going to do anything with it other than maybe show it friends, family. But the pictures I'm taking on my camera, I might want to use in my portfolio. I might want to use them in a training session. I might even want to license them. Sometimes I do license stuff through Alamy and a few other places. So shooting with that in mind, I'm trying to please myself. I'm trying to get pictures that excite me and make me happy to have taken them as a tourist. Just the simple approach of doing it. It's not just from different angles. It's not just about angles. It's more about some things are just too raw for the podcast, too honest for YouTube, and too controversial for Spotify. That's why I started the lock-in. The lock-in is my weekly email where all the filters are completely taken off. Every week I share my ideas, my brain farts, my thoughts on photography, education and reality. No algorithms, no polish, just the truth straight to your inbox. If you like the Lance Burkitt encounter, you're going to love the lock-in. Let's get into it. Approach. Why are you taking that? If you've got those decisions in your head before you get there, you can do it a lot more easily. You can do the, well, I'm doing this because I want to get a close-up shot of the brickwork. An example would be when I did the ones in Rome at the Pantheon, and then I did the ones in Greece at the Parthenon, and I did them very similar, as much as I could in terms of how close I could get to them. Looking up, getting as close to the grain on the granite blocks as I could, or on the stone blocks, to give some depth, some feel, some texture, some context, rather than just a wide shot of a building with a lot of tourists in front, which is not really any use to anybody, is it? And again, you know, we were in New York for 6 days, and we did all the things. We did all the Ghostbusters stuff. We did the firehouse and all that. And again, I approached all that in the same way with my, you know, the context of me looking up at stuff rather than looking at it. And there's a great view of the skyline of Manhattan from somewhere called Pebble Beach, which is across the river at Bronx, where the Dumbo is, at the Dumbo area. And just photographing that like that was kind of quite postcardy, but doing it low down from my kind of perspective, rather than everybody else is standing there like that going, I'm sat right on the beach as low as I can get. And some shots you can actually see the pebbles in the foreground. That's how kind of like low I'm going, just to get something a little different rather than your traditional postcard kind of shot of New York, which are great, which are nice, but we've seen them all in films, haven't we? We've seen them on the postcard. And it just adds a little bit more interest, I think. There's me and Kirsty sat, you know, relaxing. And there was a young mother and her son. They were doing the picture thing, the postcard, and I just got them in my postcard. And again, looking up at the bridge, I mean, everybody does the Dumbo shot, which I didn't realise, even though I researched it till we got back, that if you stand in the right place under the Manhattan Bridge, you can actually get the Chrysler Building as it in between the stanchions. Didn't realise that till I got back. But because I'm always looking up, I'm looking up and out for something else, I might not have taken the shot anyway, not purposely. And black and white imagery when you're looking at steelwork and ironwork, I just think, you know, we've got tourists in here. Annoying. But we haven't in here. And I think that's kind of where, for me, the interesting stories are. We've got some building work going on. We've got Manhattan Bridge in the background. You can tell what it is. We've got the great industrial buildings, which are now modernised, obviously, and turned into things, but they used to be mills or whatever. And again, black and white just does something that colour doesn't do, in terms of making you think, making you wonder, making you think. So, you know, my experience of New York was a little bit of frustration in terms of lots of tourists. But then again, some of the street photography I did, some of the street shots I got, I just think they just work for me because everybody's so busy. Everybody's whizzing around. There's no stopping. It's like, we're going where we're going next. Boom, 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 boom. Whether they're working, whether they're shopping, whatever they're doing. So they don't even give a shit that you're taking a picture. They haven't got time to stop and go, stop taking my picture, Brit. They just look at you and go past. So you can kind of get interesting characters without really having to shoot from the hip. Although, as you guys know, I shoot from the hip because A, I'm a yellow belly, and B, over years and time trying to become an un-yellow-bellied, straight-in-your-face photographer, Kirsty convinced me that my pictures are more interesting because I did them from the hip. So I've kind of kept with that. And they can be a bit hit and miss. But I think when you nail it, you nail it. I mean, sometimes you think you've got a shot, you get back, you look at it, and it's just that out of focus, it's not usable. But my hit rate in a studio when I've got a model or an actor or a dancer stood there, I'm looking for a 1 in 10 hit rate because everything's under control. That's all about position, mood, all that stuff. When you're in the street, 1 in 10 is a bit like, if you can get 1 in 10, you've smashed it. 1 in 20, 1 in 30 sometimes as a nailed-on, wow, banger shot is more realistic. I would have been a crap street photographer if I was shooting film. But again, you get interesting characters, and because I'm not going up to them and going, can I take your picture, mate? Shh. They're more interesting because people are just doing what they do. They're just at their lives. They're just living life, doing their thing. But again, my approach to this, my approach to how I did street photography in New York is borrowed exactly from what I did in Liverpool. It's just shoot from the hip, see something, get a rough position, take a few shots, hope you get one. Most of them get shot on the Dutch like this because that's kind of how you're on your camera. But I would sooner have that hit rate of 1 in 10, 20, 30 and get really interesting shots of people not looking at me and going, what are you doing? Than 10 out of 10 where everybody's just looking at me going, another street photographer. So that's kind of my approach to that. And New York was one of the kind of places where I actually then started to get a real bug for it. When I did it in Liverpool, I didn't always do it. Didn't do it every time I went. Didn't always take my camera. Sometimes I only had my phone with me, so I used to do it on my phone. But since we started travelling, New York, the interesting people, faces, places, themes, things, psychic readings. I mean, I bet she didn't see me coming, did she? You know? Just interesting people that you don't see if you're just walking around cities looking in shop windows. And like I've said in previous podcasts, although I'm enjoying my time, I'm having a great time with Kirsty. It's my favourite thing to do in the world. Being able to do it as a photographer as well is just icing on the cake for me. And quite often Kirsty will say, have you seen that? Look over there. And she'll spot something and I'll grab a picture of it. It's a nice kind of like way to relax. I mean, I don't come back off the street going, fucking I didn't get home today. I'll go, we had a great day. What a great day. It was great. Love doing all that. If I got some pictures, it's a bonus. Because primarily we're going there for a holiday. So New York was it was the place where I really got the bug. This was during the eclipse while we were there. There was a lunar eclipse over there. I really got the bug for street photography then, and I've kind of done much, much more of it since everywhere we've been. And it's for me, it's one of those genres where I think when you get it right and you get the shot, it's so pleasing because there's so many variables in it. And approaching it with that little bit of experience of not following the crowd, standing in a slightly different place, shooting from the hip, not worrying too much whether you get anything, just allows you to get stuff that's a little bit more interesting than obviously standing there with your camera. And that goes not just for street shots, but for shots of buildings, shots of the sky, shots of the floor. My kids always laugh at me because they say, oh, you're taking a picture of a busted umbrella on floor. And I go, it's interesting. I did a shot on our last trip, me and Kirsty, I did a shot where there was a little brown shoe on the floor. I took a photo of my foot next to it because I could. It's interesting. Other people are going, good idea, taking a picture of a shoe. But, so New York was kind of the start of my, I say serious street photography because I don't go out every day doing street photography. But whenever we're away and we're on the street, it's different if it's a beach holiday, but when you're on the street and there's people around, photographing them is the buzz. It's the biggest buzz I've had since becoming good at fashion photography. And New York, as you might imagine, was exceptionally busy. I mean, I don't know what holiday season's like in New York. What were we? We were April, I guess. Probably the summer. It's going to be even busier, isn't it? But then, I've shown this before. You go to Athens, different country, different culture, different research, different approach. But this again is, Christ, when did we go to Athens? It's been one of them years. This was Easter as well, I think. This was the end of March, beginning of April. And so it's semi out of season, but it was still quite busy. It's a big city. And what we found were in and around the hotel in the city was busy, but then we walked out into a little town called Plaka, the old town. Different gravy, as they say. But, I'm on holiday as a tourist. I'm looking out of the hotel window. There's a street. There's a busy high street below me. I'm going to photograph it. And you can you get that. And you wouldn't get that as a tourist. I mean, Kirsty took some pictures out the window of the fountain that was in the roundabout. Boring as hell. I get it. We're on holiday. Oh, look, we've got a fountain. But photographically, I'm thinking, but down there, look at all the people. And it's just that different approach. It's that photographer's mindset in a tourist situation. And I probably did. I think I took a couple of long exposures of the fountain to try and make it look nice because it was lit up at night, but it was just pretty. But instead of looking up this time, I'm looking down, getting a different perspective, getting all that lovely shadow dropping down on the floor. And then just mooching around the streets and photographing people doing what they do. And just coming across situations and not trying to contrive anything. You can, even this one you can see here, I've just hit the spot. Focus is more on the chair than it is on the lady, so she's slightly out of focus, but I don't care. It's an interesting picture. Guy with pigeons, he's nicely focused, birds are moving. Again, normally, Kirsty took some pictures of it, and there's, the guy looks like a little pin in the middle, and there's loads of the square around. So instead of doing the tourist thing, I've gone right up, shot at 50 mil or whatever it is, got all the birds in as close as I can. Slightly different approach, not doing it as a tourist. And again, cross the street, zoom in, get the lady. No idea I'm doing it. She's not looking at me. She's just rolling a fag or whatever she's doing. Guys taking the rubbish out down the street. These guys caught me doing it. Even though I was shooting from the hip, they still caught me doing it. Guys at the back look like they want to mafia me. Guy at the front, I don't know what he's doing. Probably checking his phone. That was a guy playing chess. And, as we went around, we were aiming for the Acropolis. I've said this before, so I'm not going to go over it again. You can see the episode months back where I talk about the Acropolis, but the episode's about non-player characters, public being in the way, getting away a shot. And you can see, he says, you can see on this one what the problem you've got. Now, my photographic brain wants to go, fuck off, everybody. I've waited 53 years to come here. I want to take this shot. Get out of the go on, fuck off. But because I haven't paid for a license, because I'm not there independently, because I'm there as a tourist, you have to suck it up. So you get the shot that you get. But while I'm there, I'm going to do my damnedest to get something more like a creative, personal, oh my God shot. Kid fed up of waiting for his parents. So you figure your way around, and looking up is always a good option because quite often you can trim the people out if you start, if you're lucky enough to get an high enough horizon point to start, and you get something a little more tangible, a little bit more creative. Now, in a perfect world, I would have gone right up to these and gone looking straight up, a bit like the ones that I did in New York that I showed you before. But I'm quite happy with that compromise, considering I'm a tourist with 1,000 other tourists on top of a hill scrambling to get a picture of these ancient monuments without a tourist in it. So, creatively, we've got a bit of nice sky, backlit by the sun. You can see some of the old work, see some of the restoration work. It's not a bad picture. Again, I'm just walking around doing my thing. This Temple of Nike, I think this is called, just getting something a bit more creative, a little bit of foreground. No tourists. And that's my compromise and that's my approach to make sure that although I'm going to all these lovely places as a tourist, I can get something which I equate to good, usable, interesting photography to either license, to just put on my website, to show potential clients without going, oh, I've been to Rome, but there were too many tourists there, so I ain't really got anything. And where you've got tourists and they're in your bloody way and you're not getting what you want, flip it, turn it into a street shoot, which is what I did here. It's a group of people with a guide, hanging around, took the picture. Guy taking a photograph, took the picture. This kid here, completely balled off, waiting for his folks, took the picture. This girl here's a guide, interesting shot, took the picture. This could probably use a license for something non-commercial because you've got all those tourists milling around. But that's kind of where the money's at for me in those shots. And again, talk about this on the other podcast. I'm taking these shots coming down because I want people to feel like the Greeks would have felt coming through this monstrosity of a building. Up and close. And then, you know, just a bit more street photography. Buskers, guy doing a round world trip, busker, different angles. Just doing anything other than what tourists do, which is stand back and get the full landscape into the shot. Whereas I'm looking for interest, not the whole street or the whole building or the whole thing. If I was that interested in getting the Parthenon, Pantheon, Nike's Temple, all those other things, I would have gone and paid a license and gone when I could at night or whenever, taking a ND for all that stuff. But I didn't, because I didn't have a use for it. I didn't have an exact purpose for it. Didn't need to. But finding interesting shots as a tourist is easy when you flip the approach from being a tourist. And like I said, I always keep my phone in my pocket in case I see something tourist I want to see. I want to photograph. Something I'm never going to want to put in my book, but just to say I've been there. Oh, look, I'll take that. And, you know, I always want more. When I come back from a holiday, a vacation, a trip, I always want more. But when you consider, you know, I said this kind of stuff, you're looking at probably 1 in 20 or 30 on the money. I'm probably getting more than that, honestly, but I wouldn't equate all these to my best work. There are some within here which are really good and really interesting. And like with all my work, I fall in and out of love with it every other day. So there's probably more good in here than bad, but approaching it how I do allows me to get some that are always going to be, I love that, and some that are going to be. Because, like whenever you're doing photography, no matter how experienced you are, you feel your way into a shoot, or you should. I mean, if somebody's walking in and within 2 seconds of being on set, you've got the killer shot. Have you really? If you think you have, I think you need to have a word with your ego, because I find, and I said this the other day, I photographed a lovely young lady for the band The Kellos, my stepson's band, for their next single cover, and she's a performing artist, she's not a model. She's a bit of a musical theatre type. And she said she's had some headshots before, that's all she'd ever had done. So I spent 20 minutes, half an hour talking to her. We sat down, we did a warm-up shoot, it was just test the lights, move around, smile, laugh, all that kind of stuff. Then we got serious, and then she was really, really good. She took direction well, and at the end of it, took a few hundred pictures, and maybe had 20, again, 1 in 10, 2 in 10 kind of ballpark, which I was happy with, she was happy, and the band was happy with. But she didn't just walk in the door and I went click. Despite all the experience I've got, you have to get people in the zone, and as a photographer yourself, you have to get yourself in the zone. And I think whether you're on the street, whether in your studio, whatever you're doing, you're never straight in the zone. You've got to find your way up the street into the zone. Find your way around the park, whatever it is. So my advice, I guess, out of all that is, you know, if you can't afford to go on trips just to be a photographer, if you're going as a tourist, which I'll probably continue to do, unless it's a commission, you have to find a way to get the best out of you creatively while you're enjoying your holiday. And maybe if you haven't done it before, I had the luxury of long weekends in Liverpool for the best part of a decade before I started doing this kind of travel stuff seriously. And by seriously, I mean going on holiday and coming back with something more than just nice snapshots. So maybe that's an idea for you guys to have a think about. Have you done a lot of streets so it doesn't matter? Have you done a lot of touristy type stuff so it doesn't matter? Have you always ended up just going with the crowd and going, oh, the guide's off, so I better go? Because I don't. When we went to Rome, let me just find the Rome folder. At the end of the day in Rome, mono. We did a day trip to Colosseum. And at the end of the last bit of the tour was we went up onto the top of the Roman Forum and looked down at the Roman Forum. And at that point, everybody was like, done. He was like, thank you, I'm your guy, bye-bye. And everybody filtered back off, and I'm like, Look what you're looking at. What's that down there? So I just hung over the side and just took pictures looking down at the Roman Forum, because I just thought, what a wasted opportunity to just trundle back down to the car park to go. And in fact, I asked Kirsty if we could walk back through it to get out. So we did walk down it, and we got stuck and had to come back. I got a bit told off. But at the same time, I mean, you can see all the tourists here. But I just wanted to get something of the Roman Forum. Now, if I was doing these commercially and I wanted to sell these for profit, again, you would go and speak to the authorities. You would get the license to go and shoot when there's nobody there. Difficult, probably, at midnight on a Saturday night or Sunday, but still different output. And these could still be licensed because there's nobody discernible in the picture, so they could still be licensed as commercial. But that's not really what I want for. So if anybody commissions or asks me, Lance, have you ever done any of this stuff? I can go, yeah, there it is. I did it as part of a vacation, but always have my photographer's hat on. And you know, the whole way around that trip, I didn't. You can see that's the people on the trip. I've just buggered off. I just thought if there's anything interesting, Kirsty can tell me. I'm just finding pictures. I'm not really interested in what they're saying because you can Google it, can't you? So it's really interesting, I find, being a photographer on a vacation stroke holiday. Stroke jaunt to get some new pictures. And I do think as a photographer, why would you go on a holiday to these places, these beautiful places, and not want to come back with something to put in your book? I don't understand why anybody would do that, because for me, that's where all the best stuff is, isn't it? It's all those unexpected moments. And although you can plan and say, I'm going to go to wherever you're going to go, Kirsty and I are talking about going to Rhodes next year, all things being well, next autumn. And I'll think about it before we go, and I'll look at places I want to go, and I'll sort out that kind of stuff and prep as much as I can. But when you get there, you never know. You never know. I mean, a better example might have been when we went to Malta and I wanted to see Gigantea. Gigantea is the big monolithic building which people claim was built by people who didn't have the wheel or any brains, and I think it was probably there a long time before that. Started to get a bit cold in here. I can't put the heating on because it makes it right nice. Where was I? All right, so went to Gigantea in Malta, and again it wasn't that busy actually, but what you find immediately is, even if there's one or two tourists about, they're just in your way because you can only walk around a few paths. So if you're trying to do a picture of one of the rooms, for example, you've got people in your way. Then also you've got those like plaques that they put up to tell you what it is. So I got a bit frustrated with that, but again, I did what I could and photographed the texture, the build. On this one you can see, look, got those awful placards at the bottom. So what you do is you do that. That's a good example, really. I have to get, probably makes the picture better going from that to just the top and the sky. And that stone there always gets me, is looking like a skull. But again, when you're fighting the tourist trap, I mean, I probably could film around there, but again, you'd have to contact the authorities. I know Graham Hancock did it with Netflix for a series, but what they would have paid to close that down and just get around it and get drone shots of it, I don't know. That's probably the best I could get there with nobody around. But again, it's just a different thinking, different approach. You're on a tourist trek, but you're trying to not be a tourist. And it's actually, you are a tourist because you're trying to enjoy your vacation, aren't you? Your holiday. You're trying to enjoy the thing you're doing. And I always do. I never come back not enjoying it. I just have this little switch that's always switched on from a photography standpoint. And Kirsty knows that. We spoke about this before on the podcast. She's quite happy for me to do what the fuck I want to get the pictures I need. As long as I'm present when she needs me there, we're all good. And, you know, you're aware you're on holiday. You're aware that you're supposed to be relaxing. But at the same time, the buzz of taking a picture kind of puts a bit of cherry on the top of my holiday. And unless I'm commissioned, I'm not going to go and pay somebody XYZ to photograph it at a different time. I would if I had to, but because I found ways around doing it. I mean, sometimes you end up the compromise is that big that you're not happy with the pictures. So I'm not saying every time I go on vacation, been watching a lot of American stuff recently. Every time I go on holiday, I don't always come back with the shot I envisaged of the place I thought I would get the shot from because of tourists. Sometimes the compromise is just too much. Too many people, you can't find the right angle. Some went in while you were trying to figure out while you're waiting for them all to piss off, whatever it is. There's always a compromise. But the converse of that is a lot of the time I get a different or better, more interesting picture because I've had to do it from a different perspective. I hope that makes sense. It's not always about the compromise is bad. Sometimes the compromise is helpful, shall we say. And again, when you look at the beach shots that I did, when we were in Malta, just people milling on the beach. So just the back on that one. This guy here, pretending he's on his phone, really taking pictures of the girls behind him. Naughty. Now, if there weren't people there, that would just be some picture of some sand. And because there's some girls there playing netball, it's a more interesting picture, even with the wheelie bins on the beach, and then the families in the background. So sometimes you can use the tourists to your advantage. Not always, but sometimes you can. So where you're finding that you're at a disadvantage, try and flip it and make it an advantage. And it might just be as simple as you can actually photograph somebody who's really interesting. It was really, kind of didn't come to have their picture taken, but they happened to be there, so you're just going to take their picture. And if they say, "Now then, mate, we can delete that," toss her. Have a conversation. If that lady hadn't been there, laying like that with a smile on her face, I wouldn't have got the shot. It's just a natural beach. It's really, really, really funny that you can tell the tourists from the locals. The locals are all wrapped up like it's cold, but it was about 18, 19 degrees, so all the holidaymakers, the Brits are like loving it because we could paddle. It was warmer there in February than it is here in July. So yeah, using people as your as a muse because they're there, rather than going, "I can't get the shot, I've turned into a tourist." Flip it round quickly, and get something that kind of aids you. And even if you don't get, if it's not usable, if you think, "Oh, it's crap," you'll have learnt something technically, you'll have learnt something aesthetically. You might just put it to bed for a couple of months, come back and look at it, and go, "Actually, that's a shot." So I feel like all I've done is rattle at you for an hour, but I just wanted to finish off the year with a nice, relaxing discussion about my approach to tourist, travel, people, place, location photography, and hope that you guys can get a little bit of something out of it and not feel like you can only do commercial work when you're being paid for a gig, or not feel like you can't do anything exciting unless somebody's paying you to do it or has asked you to do it. You can get in your own car, you can drive to a city, you can drive to a beach, you can drive to a mountain where other people are, where normally they get in your way, and still do something exciting other than just doing what I call tourist pictures, because anybody can do tourist pictures, can they? Anybody can stand there and go, "Oh, look, high street, oh, look, chip shop," photography, recording life is more than that. Nothing wrong with taking snapshots and postcard shots and something to look back on, look at your camera roll and talk to your friends and stick it on Instagram. That's great. But for me, for photographers, people who are serious about photography, and by serious about photography, I mean want to challenge themselves, want to grow, want to become more competent technically, become more exciting aesthetically. The only way you can do that is take pictures, and take pictures of different stuff. And I've said it before, it's no good if you're the best studio photographer in the world. You go on holiday and you haven't got a clue what you're doing, your pictures are going to look crap. It's a bit boring. Nobody will want to look at them. And are you pleasing yourself? Are you really happy with those pictures? Yeah? No? Maybe. So, my approach, do some practice in your local town if you want to do street. Do some practice looking at local buildings if you want to get good at taking pictures of buildings quickly. Because don't forget, when you're in New York, you're in London, you're in Rome, you're moving along pretty quickly. People aren't going to stop for you. So you've got, a couple of seconds, stop, look, bang, gone. Whether you're doing street buildings or whatever, that's kind of how it is. So you've got to get kind of good at see it, shoot it, move. So practice in your own town. Don't worry if you go somewhere there's 1,000 tourists there. If you can't get away from them, if you can't get above them, can't get below them, use them. Get them in your shot somewhere. Frame them up. Get them, somehow add them to your picture. And trust me, you'll get good, exciting pictures from that. You won't get everyone. You'll get someone you go, I wish that guy had just moved or whatever. But you'll get more than what you would have done just doing the Facebook, look where I am, shot. Which is what photography's not really about, that is it? So that's it from me today, folks. Thanks for staying with me. If you would like to, as always, do the like, share, subscribe and all that. Tell all your photography mates about the podcast. If you've got anything you'd like me to talk about, good, bad, ugly or indifferent, drop me an email. I do always try to reply to them. Sometimes I forget because A, I'm either busy or C, B, sometimes I'm very busy. Sometimes I've just got a memory like a goldfish. So I'm really sorry. If you are waiting for a question and I haven't replied to you, pop me another message just to remind me and I will get back to you. Like I said, we'll try and get an episode every couple of weeks after Christmas in the new year, 2026. How did we get there? Hopefully you'll all have a real fruitful, healthy and, exciting year of photography. I'm sure we're going to continue the battle with AI. I don't know about you guys, but my social feeds are just every other picture, every other movie, every other thing is AI of some description. Sick to fucking death of it, if I'm honest with you. We'll continue that fight in the new year. I've got some ideas about how we can do that. But in general, just keep well, look after yourselves. Use photography as a means to relax and to get your head out of the fucking rat race that we all have to live in. Said it before and I'll say it again, there is no better remedy for the stresses of life than photography, and you don't have to take good pictures. Just walk down the street, walk down the park, walk in your back garden, get the camera out, look at the stars, take pictures, switch off to the fucking goddamn hell we live in, and just use photography to make yourself feel better. Trust me, it works. All right, thanks again, guys. I'm going to wrap up. Have a great Christmas and New Year. Keep well, and I'll see you all on the flip side. Cheers, everybody. Thanks for tuning into the Lance Burkitt Encounter today. I really do appreciate you spending some time with me here in the world of photography, education and reality. If you enjoyed the episode and feel like you learned a bit of something, do me a favour, like, subscribe and share the channel with somebody you feel really needs to hear it. And if you're able to, and if you'd like to, please head over to lanceburkitt.com/shop and treat yourself to some of the Lance Burkitt Encounter merchandise. After all, that's how we're going to keep the channel and the podcast alive and completely independent. Until next time, keep shooting with purpose and stay true to yourselves. Cheers. You won't believe, yeah, I can't get you out my life.